Journey IFC strives to create safe spaces to worship God. Know that you are welcome just as you are, regardless of religious background or lack thereof, skin color, political affiliation, sexuality, age, culture, or any other label you own or society throws on you. You are welcomed and celebrated here just as you are.
I invite you to stand up and let's sing a song together.
Scriptural passage from Luke 12:15 through 21. And Jesus said to them, "Take care, be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly, and he thought to himself, "What should I do? For I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store all of my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life is being demanded of you. And the things you have prepared, whose will they be?' So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich towards God."
We got some good there. I like this one.
You can't take it with you.
Sometimes the ones I pick, y'all like, I don't know about that one. Sorry. This one's a little better. I think.
Your toast, basically.
And I have to say, of the deadly sins so far, this has been the first sin where I'm like mostly in support of it being called a sin. I don't know why, but it just feels more sinful to me than all the other ones like sloth and stuff. Every other week, I have found some way to reason around how these other so-called sins can be good and bad, kind of a mixed blessing thing. But this week is a little different. Today we're talking about greed, also known as the fancy word avarice, sometimes called, and I cannot say this word, I even Googled how to pronounce it, covetousness. Yeah, because I practiced. That's how I understand it. Yeah, you'll know. I don't think I say it anywhere else today, hopefully. But this idea of greed or covetousness isn't even included in the 10 Commandments. We've heard it before. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. Also, not their wife, or their male or female slaves. Also, don't covet their ox or their donkey. Also, just don't covet anything that belongs to them if that list didn't cover it all. So greed is this insatiable desire or this need to get more physical possessions and stuff. All things, just things. Things we don't need, or things we already have, or things we want, but we maybe want more of, I don't know. And it seems that there's an aspect of greed which desires all these things without regarding who these things are being taken away from. Greed wants more and nothing less and doesn't care who gets in the way. As we saw in that clip from Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory, this well-off and I'll say quite snotty Veruca Salt is welcomed into Willy Wonka's world of chocolate and candy treats. And she's in direct contrast to the main character, Charlie Bucket, who comes from nothing but this little tiny shack where his 4 grandparents famously are all in a single bed together, which it cannot be comfortable. Veruca, on the other hand, is coming from all this money. You can see she has nice clothes and she has all that she's ever wanted, and she comes from this nice family and she gets whatever she wants if she asks her daddy for it. So in the scene we watched, Veruca sees that Willy Wonka has these geese that lay golden eggs, and she wants one of her own dadgummit, Therefore she goes on this rampage across the factory singing this song and demanding everything she wants right now. All while making a huge mess of things, which I think happens a lot with greed. In her greedy rage, Veruca makes a mistake, though. She goes and steps on the scale that says if the golden eggs are good or bad, and it reads her as a bad egg. And I cut this part out of the video, but she is sent off to where all the trash goes, which there is the furnace. And we never see her ever again in this story, so it's a bit of a dark ending for this naughty girl. I don't think greed leads to that, but it's a warning, I guess. But Veruca is not the only character in history to struggle with the sin of greed. Greek mythology has a story about a king named Midas. While the story I'm about to tell is mythological in nature, King Midas was apparently based off a real king of, this is another word I had to look up, Phrygia? I'm glad y'all know the words. And he was a king around the 8th century BCE. And his name was Mita, the king of Mushki, which is so much fun to say. And he was a ruler that apparently had a quite wealthy reign, and because archaeological digs of that area show that there was all these palaces that have been since destroyed, and there's also all these like gold resources that they had. So this is probably where King Midas came from. But the mythological tale of King Midas has remained far beyond all of the destruction that has happened to the palaces and the gold that he had then. So the story goes that Midas was this wealthy king who had this grand palace full of his great fortune. His life was abundant, and he lived with his daughter, who also had an abundant life of her own. But the one thing that King Midas loved more than anything was gold. His happiness was tied up in gold, and he wanted more of it. In fact, for fun, he would spend his days counting his golden coins, like Donald Duck did in the Take of Scrooge or whatever. He also would bathe in the coins, is what it says. He was obsessed with his gold. And the myth goes that one day the Greek god Dionysus came into town and passed by where King Midas lived. Dionysus was known for being the god of wine and a really good party. Yeah. So wherever he went, he was bound to bring a good time with him. So when Dionysus came into town, the people knew fun was about to be had. But apparently Dionysus was passing through, and his friend, a satyr named Silenus, fell behind. Silenus ended up needing to take a nap somewhere, and so he found King Midas' castle and decided to go there. King Midas knew of Silenus and his connection to this party god Dionysus, so he invited him in and let him stay for a couple of days till he took him back to Dionysus. Dionysus was so grateful for King Midas' support of this satyr friend of his that he agreed to grant Midas one single wish. Midas thought about it for a while, but really he knew what he wanted. He wanted more gold. So Midas said to Dionysus, "I want everything I touch to turn into gold." Dionysus tried to warn Midas of the troubles this might cause him, thinking about it a little bit more, but he was just shrugged off. So Dionysus said, okay, and he granted King Midas his wish. The next day, Midas woke up, excited to see if his wish had come true finally. So he reached out to the table near him, and boom, it turned to gold. He had done it. He had what he wanted. King Midas was going to have as much gold as he had ever desired. So he continued running around his palace, touching thing after thing, turning them into gold, from the couches to the doors to the bathtub even. King Midas was just as happy as he could be. But eventually he tired out, and he decided to sit down for some breakfast when he saw this beautiful rose in front of him. And he thought, I want to sniff that rose right there. It looks like it would be nice to smell. But to his surprise, when he picked up the rose, it turned to gold before he could take in its fragrance. So Midas thought, I guess we'll just have to smell them from a distance without touching them from now on, but that's not a problem. So then he goes and he gets a grape and he tries to eat it, and it turns to gold before he can eat it. And then he grabs some bread, and the same thing happens with it, and then he's just really thirsty. He tries to get some water, and it also turns to gold. This is the point when King Midas started to see the error in his wish. Everything he touched turning to gold all of a sudden became a curse. But how could this be, right? He finally had everything he wanted, but it wasn't living up to the hype. King Midas was so upset that when his daughter came in to wish him good morning, he ran up to her with tears in his eyes, wanting to get consoled, to get a hug. But when they hugged, King Midas' daughter turned into solid gold as well. King Midas was so distraught that he prayed to the party god Dionysus to take back this gift, or curse, as we should say, that he had wished for. Dionysus felt sorry for this greedy king, so he told him to go to the river and wash his hands. Midas ran down to the river to do so, and as he washed his hands in the river water, gold came pouring out from him, and it went down and floated down the stream. When King Midas returned home, everything he had touched and made golden had miraculously returned to its pre-golden state, including his daughter. From that point on, King Midas was just overjoyed, so much in fact that he started sharing his fortune with all of his people. He was generous and grateful for all that he had, and his generosity led his people to be successful as well. Greed can take many shapes, as we see. It can look like a young girl wanting a golden egg, or a king wanting a golden everything. But it doesn't always have to be gold in our case. Sometimes we can be greedy with the things that sustain us and keep us alive, like food and our resources. And Jesus had a moment in his ministry when he taught on this exact subject. So it goes that there was a crowd that had gathered around Jesus, and a man shouted out to Jesus, asking him to settle a land dispute and a will with his family. But Jesus didn't want to get into that business. That wasn't his kind of thing. And so instead, Jesus did what he always does, and he responded with a weird story called a parable. And it goes like this. There once was a man who had a really good crop year, and his harvest was plentiful. He had so much harvested that he didn't even have enough storage for it all. So he sat and he decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tear down my barn and build a bigger one to store all my crops. And the man thought about it and said, yes, this will solve all my issues. If I can store up all that I have and have harvested this year, and I've worked so hard to get, I will have enough to spend the next few years doing whatever I want, relaxing, eating, drinking, and being as merry as I want to be. But then the story goes that God looked down on this man and said, wait a second. You're being called upon tonight. Meaning the man was about to meet his maker in the afterlife, also meaning that this man was about to die after harvesting the crop of his life. All while he was making a plan to keep for himself what required more space than his current barn could hold. God asked the man, all this that you've prepared, who does it belong to now? For those who store up their treasures are not rich in God. So really, who does all of this belong to? In a parallel version of this story found in Matthew 6, 19 through 21, Jesus says, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. This man's treasure was in his bountiful crop. For Midas, it was his golden coins, and for Veruca, it was a goose that could lay golden eggs. Each one of these tales reveals a part of human nature that we probably all struggle with to some degree. Heck, look at marketing these days and all of the commercials that we see that are trying to convince us that there's something out there that we desperately need and we have to get it because we don't have it and it's this really great thing. Like those fancy mops or a sham wow that promises to change our lives only to become more cluttered than our already cluttered lives. Where is our treasure? During the pandemic, we saw what happens when people start hoarding their own resources. It's like when everyone started buying mass amounts of toilet paper and we had like a shortage of toilet paper. The demand became so high that people were left wondering like, what am I going to use tomorrow to wipe? I don't know what to do. And I remember I was doing my internship at the time and Rick ordered toilet paper, I believe from China, and it arrived like months later or something because we were just so scared of what's going to happen. And while the toilet paper thing is a bit humorous to think back on, many resources are being hoarded today at a rate that is leaving many people without. Just look at our housing crisis in the US. Look how many people are facing hunger as food stamps and financial support are being cut back, while billionaires are living in the same country. Greed is rampant among our culture, and it is so easy to point it out in others, especially the billionaires and the people like Veruca Saltz. But when I really think about it, I can be greedy in my own ways. I am by no means rich, but I'm comfortable. But yet I still want more. A bigger place to live, the ability to eat at any restaurant I want whenever I want, more clothes, more clutter maybe. It makes sense to me that Jesus told his disciples to take nothing with them when they were sent out to do their work of ministry. Jesus knew that the stuff would get in their way. Jesus said to only take the shirt on their backs, and that was it. The disciples were going to have to go out into the world and rely on the resources of those they would meet on the road. When I hear that, that is so un-American. We talked about this in our book study this morning. We do not like having to be in a position needing help. We hate that. We don't do that here. We're self-sufficient. We save up all of our resources so that we can live a long, happy retirement, right? We see it as a weakness to need charity, as if we're not all just a couple steps away from falling into circumstances where we would need the same support. I must admit, I think I'm preaching to the choir here a bit at Journey. I look at journeyers and I see a wealth of generosity. Even today I've seen some. It just is crazy to me. I see people who are willing to even give the shirt off their back for those in need. But I'm left wondering, where does our treasure really reside here? What have we invested into? Where is our heart at? Is our treasure in some golden eggs or a barn full of crops? Is it in a building or a bunch of clutter? Or is it in the joy we receive in caring for those in need? Is our treasure the people we have surrounded ourselves with who love us and can care for us when we need additional support? Is this our treasure? I think Jesus' parable here is a great reminder for us to read back over every now and then. And y'all seem to like it this morning, so that's good. And it reminds us that possessions are just things that we leave behind when we die. But maybe there are some things beyond physical possessions that transcend this life of ours. And maybe the best way to find out what that could be is to be generous with what blessings we have received ourselves. Like King Midas sharing his fortune with all of his people. Or maybe like that one guy having a great harvest, but dying before he could experience it. The entire village being fed for the rest of the year. Maybe it isn't in what we have, but in what we share with one another. Journeyers, I have a question. Where are our treasures at? My advice is to see where our hearts reside, and maybe we will find out. May it be so. Amen.
Amen.
Do y'all want to stand or sit to sing? Up to y'all.
We're going to do this.
Y'all are going to yeah, so y'all do that. I think this is a great example of a song to sing after talking about greed. And it's about serving one another and also realizing that sometimes we need to be served as well. So let's sing together. Won't you let me be your servant? Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant.
something on my way driving here that I wanted to have an opportunity to say to y'all. I have my 76th birthday this week. I just celebrated my 50th wedding anniversary last month.
Yay.
And you are my family, my spiritual and deeply connected human family on this journey. And how grateful I am to be part of a community that chose, 19 years ago, to not call themselves a church, but call themselves Journey Imperfect Faith Community. So today, in the news, at our time, where sometimes I feel ashamed and I won't say the words, I'm a Christian, because of what Christianity has come to mean to so many people, where the worship is for Father, Son, and Holy Bible, instead of loving parent, child, and Holy Spirit that we all share. I can be part of Journey Imperfect Faith Community, gratefully. So the blessing today is we're getting ready to do friend bags. And that's an opportunity to put together bags of food that you can give to any homeless person, anybody who's holding up a sign. I have to admit, it's hard for me to give them to the ones who say, give me $1 for beer. But we can give them a bag along with just a message that we're sharing something that they can eat, something that's practical and it can go in their bodies. Go blessed from this time of worshiping together to helping to put together food bags, but out into the community, having seen this wonderful video that's put together. Okay.
If you know it, sing it along. It's a classic.
Love you and bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.